Transport, and it's Lucas Winterburn. Lucas, are you here? We will just get the microphone to you. Thank you, Lucas, if you want to give us your question.
So I work at the Student Union just at the other end of campus. Students keep raising transport as an issue and a barrier to thriving in education at the University of Leeds. So my question is, what could franchising of the bus services in West Yorkshire mean for students?
What a great question, thank you. Firstly, thank you everybody for coming tonight and for the questions that you've submitted. It really does mean a lot to me that I'm transparent, I'm available, and if I don't know the answer, my colleagues are here to give me a bit of detail, and if they still don't know, we will get back to you with more detail, so thank you for that. Transport, well, I'm a commuter, I use buses myself, I use trains, and I know that the bus network isn't working. It doesn't serve the people of West Yorkshire. It doesn't connect people to jobs and opportunities, students to college and so on. So one of the first things I did as Mayor nearly 3 years ago was start the process looking at how we could improve the bus network. So I'm really pleased that we've been able to reduce bus fares. We were the first in the country, even though Andy Burnham insists it was them, it was us that brought in the £2 fare. And it was very innovative. A government rang us and asked us how did we do it, and that's when they rolled out their £2 fare. But it was really important to me to address what the problem is, because we know bus patronage has been falling, not just because of COVID, but because people have stopped using it, because actually it's not fit for purpose, so people are driving instead. So one, we've got to make it cheaper, but also there's no point, and people have told me, on a bus, you know, people are saying, oh, it's all right, this fare, it's great, but if you don't have a bus, what's the point of it? And we've seen over time, bus companies withdrawing services, communities being cut off. So we've got a chunk of money from government called the Bus Service Improvement Plan money, which we've been using to reintroduce some routes. But that is not enough. We need a better network. So that's why we undertook in one of the first few weeks the process that is far too long, far too complicated and arduous, of consultation and audit of what the options are. So March the 14th, I will be making the decision about next steps for our bus network. But I do know we have a job of work to do, and that's why I've also been talking to the Shadow Minister for Transport, Lou Haig in Sheffield, about how do we, if we get a Labour government, have a sustainable funding stream, investment in buses, because it's not even about making them cheaper, it's not even about making the routes work, it's also what type of buses. If we're going to tackle the climate emergency, we've not only got to get people out of their cars and onto buses, but we've also got to have green buses. And we're in a situation where we're having to, you know, bid into funding pots to try and get the money to match fund for greener buses. It's just not good enough.
And Tracy, just to...
Yeah, please do.
If the buses turn up, that's great. What about the concessionary fares? We've had that not
Oh,
only
yeah,
here,
yeah.
but previous, haven't we? Where there's just this off-peak thing, and you can't use it till after 9:30, and it's just not viable for a lot of people.
This is really a big challenge for me, because I want, more than anything, people with a disability to be able to get to work. And people have been telling me that they want to be able to use their concessionary pass at 9 o'clock, not after 9:30, in order to get to work. Now, we've been looking at some of the numbers, but for bus companies, that's not cost effective for them. However, when we've made the decision about what we're going to do, whether that's the Enhanced Partnership Plus or whether that's franchising, we need to have that conversation about how we make buses more palatable for everyone. Now, we did bring in the Orange Wallet, which is a way that you can signal to the driver that you need a bit more support, whether your disability is hidden. It might not always be obvious. So we are very aware that there's more to be done to make the bus network accessible and for everyone to be able to use it. There are opportunities. I haven't introduced the Mayor's Precept yet. There are opportunities using the Mayor's Precept to maybe think about where that money goes to. Would that money go to concessionary fares? Would that money go to young people's travel? We reduced the cost of travel for young people in the summer of 21, actually, and that brought in really good footfall for young people, and we're back to pre-COVID numbers for youngsters, which I'm really pleased to see, because they don't have cars, they don't have the option, but they really need the opportunity to get to leisure and college and jobs and opportunities. So there are lots of things we can do in this space, but of course it's also about money. And that's why we need that sustainable funding stream. This is about investment in our future, because when you don't invest in transport, you are reducing growth in a region and the opportunity for growth.
So Tracy, if we look at investment, we hear all the time, of course, about the exciting plans for mass transit. When will we see spades in the ground? Because I've been a journalist for a long time, and I've been hearing about the tram, in Leeds for many years. When are we going to see something happen?
Well, honestly, this is so exciting for our region that mass transit, I have promised spades in the ground on mass transit by 2028, and it feels like eons away, but there is so much work that needs to be undertaken to get to that point. And the reason why it's going to be really exciting is because it's not just for Leeds. This is mass transit for West Yorkshire. So when we are talking about spades in the ground, we are looking at 2 corridors. One is Leeds and coming south out to Dewsbury, and the other corridor is Leeds to Bradford, and what that corridor is going to look like, and also station to station tram in Bradford. This is the way we're going to get this transformational transport plan for our region, where buses will be connected to mass transit, and mass transit and buses will be connected to active travel and cycling and walking. This is the only way we can grow our region, and businesses, in almost every meeting I have with a business, they say, can you improve the transport? We can't get people to work. People are saying, I can't take that job in Manchester because I can't get over the Pennines, or they're not being able to recruit because the transport is so poor. And what I don't want to do, I don't want to lose students. I mean, we've got a really high retention rate for our region, 52%. But I don't want students to think, well, I want to go to London because, the transport's brilliant there. I want that London-style transport network here in West Yorkshire, tap in, tap out, green, clean, with great Wi-Fi, all of these things. And working in partnership currently with operators, we'll see, what the next few weeks brings. But I'm very, very ambitious around transport.
Thank you, Tracy. Well, let's move on now. We've got a question from Stephen Adams. Stephen's there. Just get a mic to you, Stephen.
Hey there. I'm actually a graduate transport planner, so I'm very excited for these transport related questions.
Come and work with me, please. Please, come and work with me. We need you.
So my question's around devolution. So in response to the Centre for Cities Outlook 2024, you said more powers and funding should be handed down from Westminster to local leaders. What powers do you think need to be devolved in West Yorkshire, and how would you use these powers?
That's a great question, thank you. And I'm sure the people of Centre for Cities are glad you read the report. And thank you for sharing that with us. Okay, so devolution. Well, currently I would say devolution is really working for West Yorkshire. Getting a mayor has brought in £3 billion worth of funding to our region. We've also got cheaper buses, we've got more police officers on the street, we've got more people than ever before, almost twice as many people taking learning opportunities. I think that's the way that you have inclusive growth in a region, because more people are learning, they get more skills, they can get better paid jobs. So we know devolution is working. Now, for those that follow these things, you may know that in Greater Manchester and West Midlands, they have what's called Trailblazer deal, which incorporates a single funding settlement. But when I said about powers and money, the issue for devolution is sort of part devolution currently, because we don't have devolved powers over everything. We still have to go back to government with our begging bowl. And I don't think that's the way we can efficiently do things. So, for example, the Levelling Up Fund is a beauty contest. So we're competing with other regions for a single pot of money. And our success is someone else's loss, and vice versa. And Bradford, for example, in their Odsal Stadium plan, It costs them, I think about 600,000 for that plan to bid in for levelling up money. Didn't get a penny. I mean, what a waste of money. They have ambitious plans, but they have to, not beg, but they have to go in to a government sort of beauty contest. This is not the way to spend money. Adult education, I mean, 66 million. What we could do with that money devolved completely to us without strings. We have 5 different funding pots, 5 different departments, 5 different deadlines. The Brownfield Housing Fund, a shed load of money, but it's very limited time frames, loads of expectations. You can have X, but you can't have Y. We know what we need. Decisions made by local leaders in our region, working together with local authorities who know our region, we can get so much more done, and
So
also
Tracy,
build growth. So the point is, more, just to answer your question directly, more powers over skills, more powers over transport, more powers over the climate emergency. Why have I got to bid into a beauty contest for EV charging points? Surely this has got to be a national strategy. Just give us the money to tackle the climate emergency, and we know what we need to do. Sorry,
wait,
Lottie.
no, you part answered because I was going to say, what would you do if you had those powers? But what can be done to get more powers? Is it a realistic thing, or are you always going to be sort of the poorer relation to Manchester?
No. What we've done is, now look, we all feel that this government is sort of on its last legs, isn't it? So trying to negotiate with a government that is very, very distracted by what's happening in Parliament is tricky. However, that said, we've been able to negotiate what's called a level 4 devolution deal that takes us from where we are now onto the next step. And the next step is like a framework of what mayors can pull down off the framework. When they're ready and they're mature enough, they can say, we want devolved powers over this or devolved powers over skills. And this level 4 framework is a bridge to a single settlement. So what I'm hoping is with the change of government, we can really accelerate that, and we are in a very strong position to then hopefully get that single settlement. We don't want to have to wait until this pilot of a trailblazer outcomes are delivered. You know, there's loads that we're already doing that are in a trailblazer deal. You know, affordable homes. For example, 25% of all of our housing has been affordable since 2020. 25%, that is higher than Greater Manchester and West Midlands, and they've got affordable housing in their Trailblazer deal. So what I'm saying is we're already doing amazing stuff. We're already doing stuff that's in a Trailblazer deal. Just give us that single settlement, and we can then team and ladle where the money goes and make more of it, because there's too much waste otherwise. For Westminster and Whitehall to tell us how to deliver multiply, which is about numeracy, we have to deliver it in this very strict parameters. We know our communities who are so far away from even coming into a classroom to even have a conversation about maths. We've got to do so much work to even get them there. And I don't think the centre understands that because they don't know our community. So it is a brilliant question, because devolution is really working, and I'm very pleased to see there is a bit of an arms race between the Conservative Party and Michael Gove and the Labour government about how much devolution is coming down the track, because we're going to get more mayors, a couple more mayors from May, and then there's going to be more across the country. And currently 50% of the population is represented by a mayor. This is the genie that's not going in the bottle, so let's make it work for our region.
So having done it now for 3 years, where are you seeing the issues? Where would you think we need more power, we need more investment, but we're just not getting it?
Yeah, well, as I say, around skills, we have the adult education budget, but that's post-19. You know, we know that if you get a young person at 15, 16, you can maybe have greater interventions in their outcomes. The transport in particular, you know, being able to have more control over our region about where we develop, you know, good transport plans without having to go back to the centre. The climate emergency, having to ask for money when we know exactly what we need to do. And also being driven from the centre about the expected targets for the climate emergency, for example. We know that this government have changed their mind about targets and outcomes. And I am left with a centre that disagrees with me. I mean, the government target for zero carbon emissions is 2050. Ours is 2038. And Leeds is 2030. So blimey, we've got to get a move on. We can't wait for the centre. If we had more autonomy over that, we could really start to deliver. Working across the north with all the other mayors, just imagine the power of that collective, using Steve Rotherham's tidal energy in Liverpool, then over to Hull and carbon capture, and we're in the middle with our housing retrofit programme. Just think how we could come together rather than having to go back to Whitehall and say, please, will you help me, will you give us the money?
And I know we haven't got long on this question, Tracy, but just briefly on skills, being a mother of teenagers myself, we're here in the University of Leeds. And I felt like this starting out as a journalist, I felt like I had to be in London to get experience, to get opportunities, and sometimes it feels a bit like that, doesn't it? That our young people don't know where to go and they're relying on sometimes poor transport. They don't know the opportunities and think they've got to go, to the south.
Well, honestly, just even my own lived experience, I know that to be true. And wanting to be an actor as a kid, growing up in Batley on a council estate, knowing nobody, having no money, being able to have then a career over 3 decades as an actor and a writer was a huge privilege. But going back to the estate where sadly my mum passed away before Christmas, but where my mum still lived, I wanted to make sure that those young people had those chances and they didn't have to leave. That's why I'm able to have interventions. So, for example, a programme called You Can Make It Here, £2.3 million for freelancers, micro businesses in the creative sector, to say you do not have to go to London in order to have a career in the arts. We are very blessed over the last few years and looking forward. Here in West Yorkshire, we have Years of Culture, Leeds 2023, that was spectacular, Kirklees Year of Music, and then Culturedale in Calderdale, Wakefield have a Year of Culture, then the mighty Bradford City of Culture. I'm saying, if you started as a volunteer, Leeds 2023, you've got experience, you then want to go as a junior producer for Culturedale, and then you can get a nice job for Bradford, then you can get a job at Channel 4. You don't have to go, and I will be here to help you along that way, along that journey, supporting you as a freelancer and a micro business. But to your point about skills, we know so many people fall through the net, don't they, that school's not for them. So in order to ensure that everybody has the opportunities to flourish, skills and being able to be agile about what those skills programs look like, whether that's boot camps, whether that's our award-winning Future Goals Careers website, whether that's interventions in primary school that we're doing around the green economy. There's so much work going on in this space, even though we don't have all of the autonomy that we'd like.
Yes, stay up here. Don't be going anywhere. Lots of
Yes,
opportunities.
please tell your colleagues, do not leave the region. We need those smart
Not
graduates.
allowed. Right, now we're moving on to a question from somebody who couldn't be here, Jennifer. So somebody's going to ask on her behalf. And this is moving on to something we've covered at the last 2 events as well, which is prioritising the schemes to prevent and stop the violence against women and girls. There we go. So we've got a guest appearance. Thank you.
Hi, so I'm going to be reading on behalf of Jennifer Smith. She asks how you prioritise the violence against women and girls strategy against a backdrop of budget cuts and savings to be made across all public sectors.
Thank you. And that's Melissa from my comms team. Thank you very much, Melissa. The safety of women and girls. As a woman who has lived experience of sexual violence, it was really important to me to be able to have a strategy that intervened in this space, to make West Yorkshire, and this is maybe potentially naive, but to make West Yorkshire the safest place to be a woman or a girl. Now, I am luckily blessed with the fact that my Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime Alison Lowe, also shares that same ambition. And I know that we have become a bit of a trailblazer in this space. So it isn't just about money. I do know, obviously, there are budget cuts. Refuges have had their budgets cut as well. It's also about innovation and ambition. So we know that stalking, for example, is on the timeline to femicide far too often. That before a woman is murdered by her partner or her ex or whoever, stalking is often early on. So being able to set up the first ever stalking advocacy service, it's about £400,000. We have had, it's over 1,200 referrals to that service. I mean, just think about that. 1,200 referrals. And these are women who, and it's mainly women, who have had the confidence to ask for help. If only one woman, we'll never know, will we, what could have been. But I really believe that innovation is a bit of a game changer. Being able to have 52, and so to increase the numbers of independent sexual violence advisors and domestic violence advisors stops people dropping out of the system. People just are not getting justice because it's taking so long to get to court. So people are just too exhausted by the process. So the trauma is too great. They just want to get on with their lives. So they say, forget it, I'll try and just move on. And ISFA or NIDVA helps you get to that justice. Safer Streets is a funding pot we've been successful at getting cash for. And the nighttime economy has been something that Alison has really been leading on. And particularly we can see it in Leeds, those safe spaces that women have, and it's majoritively women, have been using when they felt unsafe, when they need their phone charging. One woman was actually being stalked by someone in the street and found the safe space and ran in and was helped. The Ask for Angela programme, where if things aren't going well on a date or you feel uncomfortable, you can go to a bar or somebody on security and ask for Angela and you'll get help. That's across West Yorkshire. There's a number of interventions around that. Spiking is another one that we've heard from students that they were concerned about spiking. We've raised this with the police. We've had round tables with students. We've also reached out to our male allies in a campaign, a Just Don't campaign about male behaviour change. And thank you to all the men in the room that maybe shared that. We can't do this without you. And also working with young men. Our POLED, it's a police education programme that goes into most schools in West Yorkshire, talking about what healthy relationships look like, what harassment is, what sexting is, and so on. There's a whole raft of stuff we're doing that I'm enormously proud of. But we know that the cost of living crisis is another pandemic for women, because Women's Aid have told us that those women, and it's majoritively women, who are in a relationship where there's a financial dependency are now less likely to leave, which could potentially mean that those numbers of 2 women a week murdered by their ex or partner could potentially rise. So it could not be more urgent. But Alison, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that. I think there's a mic. Thank you, Alison.
No, thank you. So as Tracy has described, we're doing lots and lots of work around violence against women and girls, but what's been really important is to embed the philosophy of eliminating violence against women and girls within our local authority partners, so our community safety partnerships, for example, and get all our partners to take this forward. So even though funding is tight and we're all having to work with a lot less, if you're embedding the principles, the thinking around violence against women and girls, then it's a shared endeavour, and we're able to do more. So one good example is the park research that Tracy led on. So she commissioned Leeds University to do some work around why women and girls don't use parks, and I can't remember the exact number, but it was 80% of women didn't feel safe in parks. It went up to about 90% when it was during the night. Women and girls don't feel safe. And then we were able to then commission some design guidance around what safe green spaces look like. That design guidance we have sent to every local authority in the country, to their parks department. We've sent it to every MP. We went down to Parliament to talk about the principles of the design guidance. It's been shared internationally. So even though that was a small pot of money, the benefits of that small pot of money are spread far and wide, and the lessons of the design guidance are being implemented, not just here in West Yorkshire, where 10 parks benefited from that money. So, for example, might have had a mile marker. There was a park in Bradford that got a mile marker, which meant that children from the local primary schools were able to walk the mile. They knew that they'd walk the mile. Or we put gym equipment in. We put, in another park in Bradford, we put a locking bike storage, so that a local Muslim women's group was able to use bicycles and have them stored safely in that park. So we've done lots of stuff here on Woodhouse Moor, and there's more to take place in the summer, some of you might have heard. So all that has happened because of that very small investment. So by being creative, thinking beyond the mayor's money, thinking how you can bring advantage to the communities that you're serving, and particularly women and girls, all of us can have that reach. It doesn't have to be the mayor, it doesn't even have to be the local authority. So all of us can do things differently and keep our women and girls safe.
Thanks, Alison.
Thank you,
Tracy,
Alison. So Lottie, just on, if I may, just to the point about devolution though, I think the ability to have a devolved mayoral model also means we can do more. So for example, being able to use my apprenticeship levy share scheme, which is money that big businesses can't spend on apprentices, that would go straight back to the Treasury. We have a share scheme where we keep some of that money here in West Yorkshire, and we can use it for training. So what I did is, for Morrison's gave us £1 million. We've been able to use that money to train PCSOs. But those PCSOs are dedicated to the bus network. So we don't have any security on buses currently, like you do on the trains, so you can have transport police. So these 15, with a sergeant as well, this group, this cohort, will now be travelling on buses, and they will also be in bus stations. But also, to add to that, as a transport authority, we've been able to develop an app where if you go on your M card, if you've got the app on your phone, you can see where there's a safer travel tool. You can tell us where you feel unsafe, and then we can take that data, and then we can work with the police to identify hotspots where people feel vulnerable. So it is that teaming and labelling that comes from devolution that I think you get more bang for your buck, rather than being in silos. Sorry, Lottie, I interrupted what you said.
I think that, some of these strategies, are they going to suffer? Because we're not, policing cuts is something that came up a lot in these questions. And we're seeing local authorities absolutely strapped for cash. We're seeing services, social services, even bin collections, everything being affected by cost of living inflation. So how can we make sure that these strategies continue if we're not seeing, bobbies on the beat? People may be feeling vulnerable, it might be that all these cuts have been happening, and can these strategies continue?
Well, look, you're right. The cuts to the police, it's 17%. Cuts to West Yorkshire Police, the 18 million is the shortfall for next year. It is really urgent, but that is why, as a mayor 3 years ago, one of my pledges to the people of West Yorkshire was we would see more bobbies on the beat, more staff. And I'm pleased to be able to say that we have we've hit our target of 750 plus actually, of more police officers. It is about leadership and working with West Yorkshire Police to make sure that we can identify the opportunities to get more police, because the public people tell me, I need to see more police on the street. We have to bear in mind though that crime has become more complicated over the last decades. that so much crime is online, it is hidden, and it is not necessarily on your street corner. So
Well, I think it's a sign of the times. If you see a
It
police
is-
van now, you think,
you
oh,
think
what's
something's
up?
happening.
Whereas
Yeah,
we
yeah.
used to just see them, didn't we? You
But
know,
certainly,
so
certainly,
reassuring.
that's why I would say to the public, if something is happening at the end of your street, you must report it, because it is the clustering of evidence that then will get you the resources, because it's on a threat and harm approach where if you don't see police, sometimes that's because your area is safer than another area. And it's hard to tell that to the public, isn't it? Because they need that reassurance. And I do get that. And that's why the PCSOs on buses was really important, to give that reassurance to the public.
Fantastic, thank you, Tracy. Now let's move on. The irony of this, Alex is stuck on a train. So someone else is here to ask a question. Is that right? Anyone? Hand going up. Just getting them out. Volunteer, thank you so much.
Hi, so Alex asks, what are your plans for increasing further inclusion for disadvantaged communities into skills and apprenticeship programmes? Remembering that many young people and adults do not always want to attend college for their learning.
Thank you. I'm going to come to Fatima as well on this in a moment. But for me, being the mayor and having devolution, I think we can have interventions that really do make a difference to our region, because there is no point if the same people from the same communities are getting all the good jobs and opportunities. We are missing out. All those great ideas, those new ways of thinking from diverse members of society, actually it's our loss. So my vision is that we have an inclusive, safe, just approach to everything that we do in West Yorkshire. And that's why it was really important to have as one of my manifesto pledges an inclusivity champion, and Fatima, I'm really delighted that Fatima has taken up this role, because Fatima is helping me get to those organisations, those groups of communities that are the furthest away from opportunity. But when it comes to skills, for example, making sure that the programmes that we're offering are not just, they're over here, you come and get them. We are going out into communities and embracing difference and working with employers. This is the key to it, to say, actually, be brave. We will support you in taking on somebody that may need a bit more of a hand and a bit more support. And the recruitment fairs that we have is often now the student or the young person interviewing the company about what's your approach to disability, what's your approach to neurodiversity, how much support would I get if I joined your business. And I absolutely think that is the really big win for us as a region, those new ideas and those new opportunities. But Fatima, I wonder if you want to say a little bit more about that wider approach.
Evening Leeds, really lovely to see so many engaged faces. I'm really proud to be the Mayor's Inclusivity Champion, and first ever one, because she's a very wise lady, is our Mayor, Tracy Brabin. As a lady that has been descendant from textile weavers who came over from Pakistan 40 years ago and now reporting to the highest office in West Yorkshire, just shows the fact that social mobility is possible in West Yorkshire. And it doesn't matter where you come from, actually what matters is the art of your potential and us supporting you to fulfil that. And absolutely Tracy is the embodiment of that theme and thought process. In regards to what the Inclusivity Champion does, well, it's a very simple vision, which is we want to support everybody from whatever walk of life, whatever heritage, whatever skill set, to fulfil their potential. And that is recognising that one size doesn't fit all. And it also recognises that actually we need to work with people to support others to see that potential. Some of the practical interventions we've done has been working with neurodiverse entrepreneurs, with some investment in supporting them to do some startup companies. And I had the privilege of meeting them and hearing about their journey and the impact that their businesses are making within society. It's also about how we develop capability to support people to get into that boardroom and to change the dynamic of what the embodiment of a role model or leader looks like. Because one size doesn't fit all, and diversity of thinking, diversity of profession, and that inclusive way of working ensures that the business that you deliver or the services that you deliver reach everyone and actually is delivering what people want. So it's in your interest to embrace inclusivity. The other bit, just answering the question about inclusivity and skills, is we're doing a lot of work with children and young people who quite often feel disenfranchised living in West Yorkshire and thinking that there is only one way to fulfil your potential to reach the top. And actually some of the initiatives that Tracy described, some of the work that Alison does, and also the work of the amazing teams here in the West Yorkshire Combined Authority are supporting people from all walks of life to harness not only just money, because people don't want just money, they want resources, they want facilities, they want spaces and infrastructure to enable them to deliver different and new and innovative services. And digital and AI is another area where West Yorkshire is really coming into its own, and obviously Councillor James has talked about the work that's going on in Leeds. But what I will say finally is, West Yorkshire is the place to be. So, you know, we've got the Women of West Yorkshire Network, which, if you're interested in joining, it's open to women and allies. It's taking place on International Women's Day here in Leeds, the Queen Hotel. We've only got a few spaces left, so do get involved with that. And also, we're trying to create a network where people can support each other into leadership roles, because we know that mentoring, for example, for those that are doing apprenticeships and are starting their journey in leadership is really, really important. And the Women of West Yorkshire is instrumental in making that happen.
Thank you, Fatima. And just to the point about devolution, it is that direction of travel, that decision that we've made has meant that we have more inclusion and more diverse learners than the national average. So we have really made an impact in that space because it matters to us. And I think that's what mayors can give you, is that sort of strategic oversight.
Because I know as having a 16-year-old doing GCSEs, all through the school career, it seems almost like it was in my day, you know, that it's this emphasis on academia and exams. And if you don't have those, then your future ain't looking that good. So it's getting that message, isn't it, I think, into schools, that there are other opportunities. Get a mentor, which is so crucial, I think, for a lot of people. So what are you doing about that, Tracy? You're going into the schools and showing pupils that there are other ways to go, not just, you know, academia.
Well, that's right, and we've got a career service offer. We want full devolution of the career service so that we can guide youngsters into the businesses that we have here locally, rather than what Westminster tell us that we should be doing. But actually, to your point, I think young people have had it really rough, haven't they? COVID. Then, you know, the exams that then weren't, and the disruption in schools, I think it's been really hard for them. And businesses are telling me that one of the challenges is that young people are so almost cut off, and there's a lot of loneliness in young people, but also an inability to also articulate ideas, that they've lost the confidence about how to speak out. They've been so isolated. So I think things like, whilst I have no responsibilities for schools, and also identifying we've lost so many creative subjects in the curriculum, being able to work with Simon Armitage, you'll know is the National Poet Laureate, on the Young Poet Laureate scheme, where every school in West Yorkshire had a poetry module that was delivered. We had 16 finalists of the Young Poet Laureates. We had 2 winners, primary school winner and a secondary school. And if we have not discovered the next Sylvia Plath, I will eat my hat, because certainly the older one is just incredible. And those 2 winners have been commissioned to write poems for Convention of the North on what it means to be Northern. But I do believe through that process, we have enabled a number of youngsters to be more confident, to talk about their ideas, to look at oracy. And also working class kids are more likely to write poems than middle class kids. I find that beguiling, actually. But there's something about maybe the shorter form that is very attractive. So I'm doing what I can to enable youngsters to have those soft skills that businesses need alongside academic. Because you can have all the GCSEs in the world, but if you cannot articulate your idea, to some degree you're not very good for business or for, to really flourish in your chosen career.
And Tracy, you touched on there the pandemic, isolation for youngsters. Also, university students, we saw some people, they couldn't go,
so
it was
tough,
online, and it all takes its toll on people's
Yeah.
mental health, doesn't it? And there are concerns that with cuts and that sort of thing, people are waiting a long time to see, experts about mental health issues. So what are you doing about that, particularly amongst young people in the city and of West Yorkshire?
Well, we will all have some experience of this, won't we, with young people. My youngest was at drama school during COVID. She couldn't do a play. She couldn't do a play in front of an audience or an agent. And, acting is a team sport. It's a contact game. And all of her cohort, all of them really did struggle. And they weren't alone. But when it comes to mental health, certainly having Fatima, as she shares, part of her role is working with health, and together we're working on a number of initiatives. I'm really pleased that Alison, who was the CEO of Touchstone, that some of you may know, which is an award-winning mental health organisation that has had massive impact, particularly during COVID, understanding that what we're doing can impact on people's mental health and how we help, really important. But we don't have specific responsibilities, but we know that we can be helpful in different spaces.
And certainly providing future opportunities and things like that will really boost onto people's morale. So, we've received lots of questions about, which we touched on earlier, the climate emergency, of course. Almost as many as the buses, but not quite as many. So we've got Adrian, I think. Adrian, if you just wait for you in the middle there, we'll just bring a microphone to you, if that's all right, to ask about pollution levels. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that one of the most basic rights that we have is the right to breathe. Leeds has areas where air pollution levels are twice the level that the World Health Organization recommends. Air pollution has been linked with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, and many other conditions. What plans does the Mayor have to improve air quality within the city so that everybody, including children, can grow up and live in a city where they can breathe clean air?
Thank you for that question, and I'm sure there are many people in the room that are concerned about it. And 1 in 20 deaths in West Yorkshire are associated to some degree with air quality. And we've seen a fair bit of drama, haven't we, with ULEZers and all of that. But I think here in West Yorkshire, I think we've got a really good approach. We have 36 air monitoring clusters across West Yorkshire. But also as part of my climate and environment plan, we are developing a West Yorkshire-wide assessment of air quality. Now, it's not my statutory obligation, and I'll come to James in a moment to speak about local authorities and their obligations. But I think it's really important that we understand what more can we do, and transport is a huge part of this in order to make air quality better. And you'll have seen in Bradford that the CAS in Bradford, that there's in the centre, they are supporting drivers who come regularly into Bradford with emitting cars to with quite, I think it's quite a substantial scrappage scheme, and they've seen really good outcomes for that scheme. So there's lots going on. And the particulates are really important. Now, also, I've seen in London that Sadiq Khan was putting air quality on the bus stops and how it was changing every day and with more information. And I think that's really important. So we're looking at, can we have a West Yorkshire dashboard of information where air quality ebbs and flows. But my mission for West Yorkshire is to have the lowest particulate, the cleanest air in the country, because wouldn't that be a great achievement? But the only way we're going to do that is to get people out of their cars. But the only way we're going to do that is to give them a transport system that's fit for purpose and that's clean and
I was
green.
going to say they're not going to be.
No, so they're not going to get out
their
their cars if there's no decent transport. But James, I wonder if you could speak from a local authority point of view. I know you're very ambitious in Leeds in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. I think when you were speaking, I was thinking back to the question earlier about more powers for devolution, because this is a sort of a work through example about where more powers and funding locally would really help us move forward on this, because we actually know what a lot of the answers are to improving air quality. It is moving away from combustion engines in transport and moving towards electric transport or active transport. It's looking about how some of the things we've talked about having a transport network that encourages people not to drive everywhere. So just to work through some of the things that we've done in Leeds that have made a difference. We've worked with the Combined Authority on trying to electrify the bus fleet in Leeds, and I saw some of the new vehicles in the city centre just as I was walking up here earlier. The Sturton Park and Ride was the country's first solar powered park and ride, so the solar panels that people park under power the electric buses that come into Leeds. We can continue as much money as we can get our hands on, we can spend on electric buses, so pretty much every bus that runs around Leeds is an electric bus. That will be a big step forward. We can work with the railways to make sure there's a lot more electric train services running. There's other things we've done that really benefit air pollution. So some people will know this, some people won't. Climate is caused by carbon emissions. Wherever carbon is emitted, it impacts the climate change. Particulate air pollution, which I think the question was about, is very localised to where the source of the pollution is far more than that. So sort of where you have a lot of vehicles, where you have a lot of people living together. So things like the district heating scheme I talked about earlier, having heat pumped into buildings, particularly residential buildings, rather than every single flat in a building having its own boiler, makes a difference to particularly particle pollution and CO2. So there's loads of things we are doing in Leeds. Some of the changes, so air pollution, like I say, particularly concentrated where you have a lot of traffic, a lot of building, a lot of people. So some of the changes we've made to the traffic systems around Leeds, particularly around City Square, which was always a really high levels of air pollution in terms of just not having traffic going through, is part of making changes there. So there are lots of things we've done. There's lots of things we've done in Leeds. We have regular reports to our executive board. Councillor Mohammed Rafiq sat at the back is the exec board member that covers that. We have regular reports to the executive board on what we're doing. But like I say, there is a lot of things we have been able to do. Home insulation as well to reduce sort of the heating demand on homes and things like that. But our next steps would be we need to do more of it. And like I say, it's a worked example. I'm sure other questions have that of the question you had earlier, Mayor, around actually more devolution funding and powers. Just let us get on with this. In a lot of these areas, you know what the answers are. We just need the ability to get on and deliver.
And James, just before you sit down, with, as we keep saying, the world we're living in now, with authorities not having money, are you going to be hindered, in reaching targets and making Leeds more environmentally friendly?
So there's some things there are some things we can do that are good money-saving things for the council. So Councillor Salma Arif, who's over there, Salma is our executive board member for sports centres. We, as part of our climate emergency work, we spent a huge amount of money investing in solar panels and heat pumps for sports centres in Leeds, which we did to reduce carbon emissions. Actually, as energy prices have shot up in the last 2 years, they've saved us a huge amount of money as an organisation on our energy bills. So it is good for the council as an organisation that we've done work like that, as well as having huge climate benefits. Things like we've got the largest fleet of electric vehicles of any council in the country, particularly try to target those on services that come around the city centre. Again, the lifetime of buying and running an electric vehicle is cheaper than a diesel vehicle, so it's good for the council as an organisation. We can do those kind of things. But there's other things, particularly in around housing, where we know what the answer is, but we're constantly, we've got a team of staff in the council that are constantly chasing grants, whether it's government grants, grants from the energy companies to fulfil their obligations, philanthropic institutions, to constantly getting grants for delivering the work we need to do. And again, it's if we had a lot more money, we could do it. Or if some of this money was given to us on a long-term basis, so instead of planning for the end of one grant or the end of one financial year, we could plan 10 years ahead. then it'd be so much better for us. I mean, we've looked at housing. We reckon to make every house in Leeds up to a good standard, it'll cost us about £5.5 billion, which is a lot of money. But actually all the technology is pretty much, I'm not quite sure how we do Temple Newsom House, which is a Tudor mansion, but you know, a lot of the houses we all live in, you know, we know what we need to do. It is having that, it is having that resource and that pipeline. We're not going to do it in a year, but if we had a proper funding scheme, we could do it over time. So yeah, there is a lot of stuff that the money makes a difference.
Thank you. Yeah, if we come back to Adrian, I mean, what are your thoughts and what you're hearing then? We'll just get your microphone. Thank you.
I think there's quite a few things that could be done without needing money. Like in Paris, they had a vote about banning these SUV cars that become more and more popular in Leeds, and they obviously produce a lot of pollution. I thought of something else, but
yeah, or outside the school gates, you know, with the engine running.
Having a clean air zone. Lots of cities have clean air zones. Why don't we have a clean air zone so that we're not breathing in all this crap all the time?
One of the challenges is we don't have cheaper EV cars. This is part of our problem, that I would love a completely electric car, but actually the cost of them is far too high. So what I'm saying to businesses, most of the second-hand cars that we go and buy are from fleets. So business can play a part here. If they electrify their fleet, when they then churn into a new fleet, they then go on the market and we get cheaper second-hand cars. But also, we are investing, I think it's 17 million, in EV charging points for those terraced houses that don't have a drive. So we know we're going to need 10,000 EV charging points by, I think it's 2030. Currently we have 1,000. We've got to really escalate that choice that people can make, where they can get a cheaper car that is not petrol, and also then be able to charge it in their street in a community charge point. Really, really important.
I've got a very snappy answer on the clean air zone. So other cities, Bradford, Sheffield, have them. We went down the road of going for charging clean air zone. We've got grants available for buses, for commercial vehicles, lorries, coaches and taxis. We've got loads of grants in place, a lot of vehicles switched over. What we actually did is we got to the point where the legislative limits that you need to underpin a charging clean air zone in national legislation, we actually met that. So there was no, those levels were set by the national government. None of us are MPs in this room, so we can't answer for the national government, but was set by the national government 20 years ago. There's probably an argument that they're not low enough, but in terms of were we able to charge high polluting vehicles, we weren't, because we met the limits for that. That's not to say as a city we want to do more, and we've continued to do the work that I've talked about in terms of, like I say, particularly around the bus fleet, around trying to get over to a wholly electric bus fleet. But in terms of that specific question about why we don't have a charging clean air zone, we were able to meet what's set out in legislation as the limits to that if you go above, you have to have a charging clean air zone. We're below those. I'll cut it short. It says debate over those limits are the right point, but we did meet them.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. Thank you for that. Really
so
helpful.
that's all the questions that I selected.
Okay.
So it is over to you guys. If anyone has a question for the Mayor, please do. We'll probably take 3, won't we, Tracy? And
sure.
Then you can answer them. So these two gentlemen, very quick. And this. We'll come here because you're a bit closer to the microphone, and then we'll. Oh no, we're going over there. Go on. Yes.
Go for it.
Yes.
It's on, is it? Yes?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Good. Right. Yes, it concerns, hopefully we'll go towards franchising, but in the meantime, the infrastructure for our buses could be much better. Now, I've been involved in trying to get improvements to our bus services, particularly along the A65, and I discovered in 2008, when the quality bus route from Leeds to Horsforth was introduced, the intention was to extend it to the boundary with Bradford. Nothing has happened, and the problem with that is that congestion means that buses are cancelled. The journey times, if I travel in the evening, then it takes 40 minutes, add another 50% at peak times because of all the congestion. Now, franchising, unfortunately, is going to take quite a time. I would like to see, in the meantime, the infrastructure put in place for more bus priority, essentially, so that we're ready to take advantage. My disappointment recently has to see lots of money spent on road improvements, and I think of Fink Hill in Horsforth, which you probably don't know. And there was a problem, but it didn't require the over-engineered solution. And all that money has gone really to benefit not public transport, but really just car drivers. So I'm looking for infrastructure improvements, and I just wonder how that can be achieved, because obviously it's a partnership between WICA and the City Council.
Indeed, and bus priority lanes are vital if we are going to get more people on the buses, because that means that the bus is reliable and you know how long your journey is going to be, because there is no congestion. But I wonder, Simon, could I come to you about that very specific question?
What plans are there to make things better?
Simon.
There seems to have been a sort of stoppage in the last few years.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So there is an investment programme that's already underway. I don't think it does include the A65 corridor. However, we are about to come out to consultation around our next local transport plan, which will then set our capital programme going forwards. So it's absolutely the right time to raise it. We agree completely that we need to continue to move further in terms of being able to introduce more bus priority. And actually there's a chicken and egg relationship here, isn't there? Because quite rightly what communities ask us is what level of guarantee can we give that an improved service will be delivered by the bus operator in return for the investment that takes place on the highway. That's part of the reason why we've been doing the work to look at reformed bus market options for the Mayor. That decision will be taken on the 14th of March, and so we're hoping that we will be able to set out over the next few months where we take our bus reform plans going forwards, which are not just about services, they're not just about franchises, they are very much about the whole end-to-end journey. And we are also working very closely with local authorities at the moment to think about what that looks like at a whole corridor level. So we recognise that we need further investment in our on-street bus waiting facilities as well. We've come an awful long way in that regard, but there's a long way to go. And then we start to think about what do the walk routes look like through to our key bus corridors as well, because it's that whole customer experience that then changes people's attitudes to bus, which, as we know, for all sorts of perfectly logical reasons, over time people have shifted away from bus, and we have to be able to turn that around.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you so much. So we'll just move along now to this gentleman. Thank you.
Hello. I've been asking this question since 1985 when I was medical officer for environmental health in Leeds. And that's a question for the people who have a variety of disabilities or simply getting older. Is the gap between public toilets means they can't use public transport because it's just too far. Is there any idea of getting a standard distance or standard time between public toilets and how they relate to the transport routes? We talked about walking corridors. For a lot of older people and others who've got bladder issues or have small children, it's not just both ends. A minimum standard for the distance between toilets would get a lot more people onto the buses.
That's a really good question. Thank you for that question. Can I take that away?
Please do. I'm always happy to talk about it.
Yeah. Great stuff. I do remember back in the day when I was an MP, we had an idea that businesses could get lower rates if they allowed the public to use their toilets. So, you know, pop in for a pee and save a penny or something. We used to, but, you know, save a penny for a pee or something. There's something definitely in there, but obviously that's working with local authorities as well. But we'll take that away. I think that's a really fair point when we have an ageing population and people thinking, I don't know if I'll be able to get to the toilet, so I'm not going to go.
Or if you're on a bus for 45 minutes and
Exactly that.
take 20
exactly
minutes.
That.
Yeah.
It's a very good point, thank you.
Inhibiting the older people from moving round.
Yes.
Indeed,
To have
indeed.
other greater care requirements.
Yes, indeed. Very helpful, thank you. So
Lady
you have the
Pink,
lady
we've
there.
always got the lady with the glasses first, I think you. Yes.
Hello.
Shot her hand up.
Hi, Tracy.
It's on.
Can you hear me? Nice to meet you again. So I'm one of the winners of the Mayor's Innovation Prize. And
You are, yes, yes.
So my question is about jobs. So I really do not want to leave Leeds, and I'm looking for jobs in the sustainability and climate change area. Is there anything being done to like retain talent and increase jobs in this area?
Yes, come and work with me. I think this is going to be a game changer for our region. We were an area of manufacturing, weren't we? Part of the Industrial Revolution. You know, manufacturing is in our muscle memory, but we have to now pivot to the green economy and to ensure that we can be a leader in sustainability and the green sector. And that's why I committed to 1,000 jobs for young people, green skilled jobs. I'm really pleased that my Green Jobs Task Force helped me deliver 1,047 is our recent count. And we've only yesterday at ITV we launched our green skills plan, and it's working with young children in primary schools, it's working with colleges, helping ensure that all courses have sustainability options, it's working with businesses to green their processes, offering them match funding to do so, but also those great jobs that businesses have pledged to make sure that they're delivered. And there's a great company that are part of the Green Jobs Task Force, Infinium, who do waste to energy. Sea Capture is another one that has an extraordinary pilot of basically, it's very technical, but my understanding is it's dissolving carbon, which is quite unique, and those particulates that come out of it. So I hope that this region will be the place to get a job in sustainability in the green sector. But we have lots of jobs at the Combined Authority that might be of interest. So please do check our website and maybe we can speak later.
And have you been finding that the jobs aren't there, or that it's just difficult to get your foot in the door? If you don't mind me asking.
A bit of both. I've seen a lot of opportunities in London. I don't want to go to London.
No.
Yay!
No, stay here. We've got a job offer basically, it's on camera.
Yeah.
Right, let's move the mic to this lovely lady in pink.
Yes.
Hello, thank you. Hi. Transport. A lot of focus in transport planning, as far as I can see, is to do with the economy, getting people to work, getting people to education and skills training and whatnot. I think it's also important, and I want to ask you about focusing on leisure activities, getting people to parks. I live in Armley, which is quite a deprived area. A lot of people don't have cars, as Alison will know, and it's 2 buses to get to Kirkstall Abbey, which is, you know, we've got a lovely park in, I'm just giving examples. We've got a lovely park in Armley, but it's 2 buses to get to Kirkstall, and it's actually quite a difficult journey. And then there are more beautiful parks. I don't know why this is, but the more beautiful parks with all the lovely gardens and all the rest of it are in the smarter areas of Leeds. And it's like 2 or 3 buses to get to Brandy or to get to Golden Acre Park. And I'm sure there are other leisure activities that could be considered amongst this, but how much can you focus on enabling people to have a good life that is not only about the economy? Of course the economy is terribly important, but you know, if you've got small children, for retired people, for all kinds of reasons, all of us on our weekends, you know, that's side of transport so important.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd like to see a bus that did a circle around all the big parks. I mean, you knew you could get there without. But anyway, that's enough. You get
No,
the
it's a good
idea.
idea.
No, it's a good idea. It's a good idea. I'm sure we'd definitely have volunteers to drive that bus. That would be lovely. So there's 2 points to that. There's 2 points to that, I think.
Yeah.
Is what type of communities do we want? And that's why it's really important that when we're talking about housing, when we're talking about regeneration, pocket parks, greening our streets and our, we have swathes across West Yorkshire, back to backs. There's not a tree in sight. What more can we do in those communities? Also, to your point about 2 buses, that's why for me, the game changer actually for the Mayor's Fair was the 450 day saver, because we have Transdev, we have Arriva, we have First, and historically, if you went on a First bus, then you couldn't go on an Arriva bus. You'd have to buy another ticket. And actually, this is also a gender issue because women seemingly use buses and public transport more than men, but they also use them on many more journeys. So if you've got 2 jobs, or if you've got caring responsibilities, or you go and pick the kids up from school and then you take them swimming, this 450 day saver, any bus, anywhere across West Yorkshire, any number of journeys, any operator, was quite, I think, a game changer. So somebody that hasn't got a concessionary pass, but wanted to use the parks and go to a couple of parks in a day or over a weekend, you could use the 450 day saver, and that that is all you're spending. But I agree with you, it's not even only about where the parks are, but the accessibility and the offering those parks, and that's why the work that Alison was talking about, this work that we undertook with Leeds University about safer parks. Girls and women, girls as they get older, their life closes down to their bedroom, whereas boys' lives open up to the park and to the football and to the basketball courts. We wanted to make sure that the parks we have are used by everybody, and that women are not the last in the queue when it comes to the design and whether the sort of afterthought.
And it's also a free leisure activity, isn't it, where we are all struggling with the cost of living, so if you can get to the park for the day with the kids, that's a fantastic way to spend the day. What did you want to say?
Yeah.
Oh, just get the microphone to you.
Hold
so
that close,
close.
I'm sure you can hear me.
No, just so that everybody else. Yes, yeah.
Hi, just touching on the point of women and girls safety. So this came about really in my area where I live in Pudsey. There's a pilot scheme for the walk and talk with the officer. And one of my neighbours took the opportunity to go out for a walk and a talk with an officer. However, whilst the initiative is good, what she was concerned with was that the officer was in uniform. Surely it would have made sense for our neighbour to have a walk and talk with an officer in plain clothes, because it would have made sense for the officer to see things perhaps more covertly than somebody in uniform where, quite frankly, if something's going to happen, it won't happen if you're in uniform. So my point and my question is, what is the policy around officers' uptake of this walk and talk, and what is the policy in terms of their dress code when they do take up this offer of, say, myself or other people? Because I'm a runner, I like the outdoors. Where I live, I'm very, very fortunate to have green belt on my doorstep, but I do feel reluctance to go out at certain times of the night, even though with my background I think actually I should be, could fight off anybody, but actually no, I don't.
She's not a cage fighter.
No.
We all know now.
I'm a cage fighter. But my point is, it's about the police officer. Should they be really in uniform, or really would plain clothes be better? That was my question.
I think that's a good, for those that don't know, walk and talk is an opportunity for an officer to go out with somebody that wants to show their community for what it's like in reality, where they feel unsafe, where the pinch points are, where the people hang out or they feel uncomfortable. I think that's quite a good idea, and it's currently a pilot, so that's good feedback. So it'd be worth passing it on.
Of course, there's the other side that many people will feel reassurance that a police officer is in their community. It is a it's a voluntary scheme, so any police officer can do it. So some could be in in plain clothes, but actually there'll be a lot of people feel reassured that there's someone there in uniform. So I think this swings and roundabouts. But we'll take that back to John Robbins and see what he says.
But also to your point that women feel uncomfortable exercising. When we did the Rob Boroughs half marathon, lots of my colleagues were doing it in the combined authority. And talking about training plans with my male colleagues, they're like, oh, I'm going to go running after work. I'm like, well, it's pitch black. Where are you going? And it's like, oh, well, I'll just go on the street and then down by the canal. Like, are you mad?
And dog walking.
I just feel a completely different approach that is I don't think, we need to get that message out there that our life is different. And I don't think every man understands about the keys in your hand, the fact that you choose different shoes because you're coming back late.
You're not listening to music because
you tell your friend where you are, all of this stuff. I think our lived experience is good that we're having these conversations, I think. But to your point, we should be able to feel free, that we want to go running wherever we want to go at whatever time.
Lots of street lights, that's what we need working.
But we need more women out at night, because women feel safer when they see other women. But women don't feel safe, so we can't cluster. So we need to be braver as well to just, own the street. And can I just say, Al Garthwaite is the queen. She's not here, is she? The Reclaim the Night marches back in the 80s. Al was one of the champions of that. More women on the streets, so we'll feel safer because we see each other.
We are out of time. There's a gentleman nodding, but I think Tracy will see you personally afterwards. Is that all right?
Oh, quickly,
because I'm being given 2 minutes ago, and
All right. Oh, what a shame. I'll see you in a minute.
Come and have a word.
But thank you all so much for coming, and please tell your friends that we're doing this on a regular basis, and it's really important for me as your mayor to be held to account and to also learn something new, toilets. Being able to pick out good ideas as well. So thank you all, everyone.
Thank you so much.